structures that are relevant would be this one, 916 here, and side view, this one, and then we have a ventral view, which is this. Now, I'll go back to these two. The brain is surrounded by a very tough membrane, and that's this. This is the dura mater. On the surface of the brain, you can see, yes, I sort of can. On the surface of the brain is encased in a membrane called the pia mater. So dura is this slick one you can see. Pia you're unaware of because it's right on the brain. And the space in mammals between the dura and the pia has another membrane that has little web-like fibers that extend from one to the other. And that's called the subarachnoid space. Arachnoid because arachnids are spiders and they make webs. So that space is the subarachnoid space between the two membranes. And there is a kind of layer sandwiched in there, the arachnoid. The subarachnoid space has cerebrospinal fluid circulating in it. So it's part of the whole system of fluid in the central nervous system. You will end up taking off the membrane, and you can see it's got quite a deep division. This would be, let's see, which sulcus have we got there in the middle? What is it that separates the two cerebral hemispheres? This
corpus
central sulcus?
No,
central
sulcus.
Well, it'll be in your book. It's just not coming to me at all. Okay, this picture. This is the intrathalamic adhesion. I can see this circular thing right here. So this is the thalamus, this part of the brain, and that circular structure is the communication left and right. The communication between the cerebral hemispheres is seen right here, and this is the corpus callosum, and it's white because it's white matter, it's myelinated neurons that allow the left and right halves of the cerebral hemispheres to communicate with each other. There actually is a ventricle in here, and if I probe gently, yeah, there it is, a fluid-filled space. These are the lateral ventricles inside of the cerebral hemispheres. The other ventricles, third ventricle is around the intrathalamic adhesion. Fourth ventricle is in the medulla, and this would be part of it. And then this is an aqueduct, I think it's aqueduct of Sylvius that connects third and fourth ventricles. The ventricles are not showing as well as I'd like, but that's okay. The roof of a ventricle, I can just see a little bit right here. What's this? Telochoroidea is the name for this tissue that roofs ventricles, and its cells of it are important in secreting cerebrospinal fluid. This down here would be the pituitary under the brain. I'm not sure I see a connection from the hypothalamus into that, maybe the other half of the brain had that. This big white thing here, with a piece coming this way and a piece coming from the other side, is the optic nerve, and where the two sides cross over each other is the optic chiasma, the letter chi being across, so very simple, an X shape. It's very hard. Well, I better go over parts of the brain. So we have the cerebral hemispheres, a bit more of the forebrain here, and then we have parts of the midbrain right in here. This is the, let's see, have I got it right? No, that's not the pineal gland. This is superior colliculus. Oh, wait a minute. Where am I looking? Is that the pineal? Okay, maybe it is. Superior colliculus, and then in back of it is inferior colliculus. Superior and inferior come from humans, where the superior is up top and the inferior is below it. You could call that rostral and caudal if you wanted to. The hindbrain is here, and what can we see of it? We see a bridge-like region here, the pons, going into the medulla, which is here, and then spinal cord back here. So this bump is the pons, this is the medulla, and then this would be the central canal and the spinal cord. You'll notice that cerebrum and your cerebellum are the two big parts of the brain, fore and hindbrain, and the midbrain is small and tucked in between them. In humans, cerebral hemispheres are enlarged and the brain has a bend in it here, so this part is sort of tucked more deeply under the posterior part of the cerebral hemispheres. In elephants too, the brain is bent in a similar way. Now, you'll notice that the cerebellum has a color difference. There's a kind of tree in the middle and darker tissue around the outside. Wherever you see the whitish color, that's telling you that they're myelinated neurons. So in the cerebellum, we have white matter on the inside, and the darker, the gray matter is on the outside. Now I can also show you that that's the case in the cerebral hemispheres. Let me just cut through this. Boy, is this ever tough stuff. There we go. Now I'm ripping apart the arachnoid as I do this. You can see some of the fibers there. Getting into cerebral hemispheres. Now ventrally, this is the olfactory tract right here, or olfactory bulb. This would be pressed up against a plate, and the head of the brain lots of little holes in it that the olfactory nerves go through into the olfactory bulb. When we look at cerebral hemispheres, there's a difference between ridges and grooves. A ridge is a gyrus, and a groove is a sulcus. Okay, I wanted to show you gray matter on the outside, which means
What is a gyrus?
a ridge, a broad.
It's literally like a physical thing.
So the shiny layer on top is the pure matter?
Yeah. Okay, now looking inside of a cerebral hemisphere, you can very clearly see myelinated neurons making white matter inside, and that the gray matter is on the outside. It matches the colors of the cerebellum with white matter inside, gray matter outside. Primitively in the nervous system, white matter is outside and gray matter is inside. That's what you find in the spinal cord. And evidently the migration of gray matter to the outside is something that has taken place that in brains where there's a bit more activity. What's going on in the cerebral hemispheres would be a process of association of information. And information coming into the brain comes through the white matter up the brain stem, through the thalamus and out to the cerebral hemispheres. The input of information comes from all different parts of the body. It's coming up the spinal cord. It's being rooted in from the cerebellum. It's coming there from the eyes, from the nose, and the nerves coming in synapse with gray matter cells. And so the gray matter is really associating information from all different parts of the body, deciding what to do about it, and then sending instructions out through the white matter, generally down the various routes, but ultimately down the spinal cord, to have some sort of activity take place. So gray matter is associating information. In the cerebellum, we have the same kind of thing, but the cerebellum is really involved with things like balance and position of muscles in the body. The fine control in your hands, part of it is cerebral hemispheres. The real motor control is coming from your cerebellum, where information is being put together and instructions again are sent out. The cerebral hemispheres, we think of them as having to do with thought and higher mental processes. A lot of what they do, thank goodness you don't have to think about. The cerebellum is something that you have very little thought control over. I don't know, you can manage it a little bit, I think, but it's pretty much working you on its own. So what I'd like you to do, if you want to work in pairs, you can. There are little trays in the back of the room. Oh, pituitary, we also should be able to find some cranial nerves on the underside. That's why I gave you this. We've got the optic chiasm here. Can we find oculomotor nerves, and where should they be coming off? The infundibulum goes to the pituitary, and then, well, what's coming off? Ooh, have I got something? Yes, I do. I can see a nerve coming off here. I can see a nerve coming off here. Problem I've got is too many nerves. What are they? In the diagram, I do not see something coming off straight like this. Oh, did I just rip it? No. This one is, let's see, coming off the side of the swollen area. Here's my swollen area. I'd say that this is oculomotor here. And I have no idea what is that. Maybe I should just rip it and it would go away.
Can we do that on the practical?
Ooh, let's see. Here's
Imagine, just
Rip it and it'll
the
go away.
right behind the pons. So here's pons and here's a nerve. This would be the facial nerve right here. I do believe. And where is trigeminal coming off more laterally? Let's see if we can pick up trigeminal. Okay. This is